George Orwell once said, "Myths that are believed in tend to become true." In other words, a myth ceases to be simply a myth when enough people believe in it. Stereotypes have the power to dictate conceptions about characteristics and traits of entire groups of people. When applied to the education of gifted children, teachers need to make a conscious effort to distance themselves from myths and negative preconceptions at the risk of denying these students access to an equal education. Biased judgments developed from a lack of understanding may contribute to the stigmatisation of gifted children, who are often misunderstood by their peers and teachers. Raising awareness of the characteristics and traits of gifted children is thus an area of advocacy if educators are going to confront the negative stereotypes and myths surrounding these learners. Inclusive education is founded on the principle that every student has an equal right to access high-quality learning environments, engage in meaningful content, reach their full potential, and feel supported in their school community. While gifted and talented students are not exempt from this premise, they are a group of students that are often overlooked by teachers. Due to their breadth of knowledge and advanced abilities in processing information more rapidly than their age peers, they tend to be regarded as less needy than other students, their special needs and past contexts being ignored. This is how the myth may have emerged, in which some educators believe gifted students don't need help, they'll do fine on their own. The illusion that more academically advanced students will be okay in the regular classroom without intervention or special needs support continues. This is because there is a general assumption that gifted students will be successful on their own due to their intellectual potential or high level of achievement. Educators may think that as these students learn quickly and effortlessly, outperforming their classmates, there is no need to differentiate the curriculum. In the past, the needs of academically advanced students were also given less attention from teachers, as there was a tendency to cater to lower ability students and the ones with learning difficulties, assuming that gifted students would be fine on their own. There may also be the assumption that as gifted students understand the core work with such ease, they do not necessarily require the explicit teaching that others do. It is important to acknowledge that this is far from the truth, and that some classroom practices still continue to marginalise gifted students by creating barriers to successful learning. As most conceptions of giftedness distinguish between potential and talents, the need to deliver curriculum and instruction at a more advanced and challenging level is necessary. The myth, gifted students don't need help, they'll do fine on their own, is extremely problematic, as when gifted students are insufficiently challenged in their academic environment, they become at risk to underachievement. According to Garnier's theory of talent development, gifts correspond to high natural aptitudes, also known as high potential, and function as the building blocks of talent. Garnier states the gifted label applies only when the ability level largely exceeds that of most age peers, placing them among the top 10%. When a teacher finds themselves with such a student in their classroom, there can be an assumption that the child will be able to cope with very little teacher guidance, when in actual fact, true talent development requires many more components than just high potential. Garnier argues that talent is the outcome of a long developmental process and involves plenty of practice, energy, and time. Garnier's model highlights that students can be gifted without necessarily being talented, and that giftedness is no guarantee of high achievement. Interpersonal and environmental factors hinder or facilitate the progressive transformation of a gift into a talent. Motivation plays a crucial role in engaging gifted students, as those who are actively engaged in the learning process generally have higher rates of academic success as well as exhibit fewer behavioural problems. Teachers must differentiate the curriculum and design learning contexts that are at an appropriate level of difficulty and challenge. Providing gifted learners with opportunities for self-directed and independent learning may also be an effective way to engage and motivate them. Research in the field of gifted education have documented that roughly 40 to 50% of regular classroom content and skills delivered at an average grade level does not match the gifted student's needs or interest. This research suggests that the learning experience may become redundant for the gifted student and thus may detrimentally impact on their attitudes towards school. There is also extensive research to suggest that positive learning outcomes can be gained through differentiating the curriculum for gifted learners. Numerous research in the field of gifted underachievement suggests negative attitudes towards school is a consistent factor among these learners who may disengage as a result of insufficient academic challenge. The implications of this research suggest that educators need to work with gifted children in order to evaluate whether they intrinsically see the worth in their schooling and whether they are motivated to achieve their desired learning goals. The need for high-quality, challenging learning environments is a consistent area of advocacy among those who work with gifted learners. Professional development and training in gifted education can alter dysfunctional conceptions about myths of gifted students. In-service teacher training aims to reduce negative stereotypes, misconceptions, and prejudices. At a recent High Potential Learners workshop that was offered at my school on a staff professional development day, a highly exceptional Year 12 gifted student spoke to staff to increase teacher awareness of gifted learners. Building rapport with teachers was highly valued by the students, as well as finding a balance between teaching the whole syllabus and challenging gifted learners. Following his presentation, I asked Tim to briefly describe his feelings in response to the myth, gifted students don't need help, they'll do fine on their own. He expressed that when students like himself were left on their own, they were more likely to procrastinate. This is because from an early age, gifted students learn that they can easily achieve perfection regardless of the effort they exert.
There's often a misconception that high potential students, when left on their own, can often achieve more. But that we see that this isn't necessarily a trend that follows into the HSC year. Instead, we see a trend where gifted students tend to fall apart or have their results decreased in comparison to their early years due to the fact that they don't develop the work ethic, they don't develop the sense of achieving or earning your results due to the fact that they could bludgeon their way through their earlier years. And the fact that they know that they can bludgeon their way through subjects creates a really toxic attitude when they enter year 11 and 12, where you require a high amount of work ethic to achieve A's. So this is where we see gifted and talented children fail in terms of developing their learning styles into the HSC.
Thank you. Gifted students need guidance from their teachers to support, challenge, and motivate them in order to successfully reach their potential. Thus, environmental influences such as the quality of teaching and the classroom environment play a crucial role and act as a catalyst for talents to fully emerge. In 2001, the Senate inquiry into the education of gifted and talented children recognised the disadvantage suffered by gifted children whose needs were not being met, acknowledging that many of these children experienced boredom and frustration in the regular classroom. The committee agreed that gifted students require targeted support and differentiated curriculum programs to meet their unique needs. The Australian Curriculum Assessment and Reporting Authority states, gifted and talented students are entitled to rigorous, relevant and engaging learning opportunities drawn from the Australian curriculum and aligned with their individual learning needs, strengths, interests and goals. Thus, addressing the needs of gifted students and providing them with enriched education continues to be a goal for all educators of these students. The assumption that gifted students don't need help and that they'll be fine on their own is thus just a myth, doing them an injustice and denying them of reaching their full potential. In failing to provide gifted learners with a supportive and challenging learning environment, underachievement can occur, which leads to the second myth that will be discussed today. That student can't be gifted. He or she is receiving poor grades. Gifted students do not always excel in school. This may be due to a range of reasons, but as an educator, it is important to recognise that very rarely will this be because the gifted student is lazy or has poor work ethics. The significance of student motivation cannot be underestimated. The seeming lack of motivation from these learners can be highly frustrating for teachers. However, motivation is often significantly misunderstood. This assumption by teachers that the gifted student simply needs to work harder is highly problematic. In addition to this, teacher expectations and simply assuming that a child who receives poor grades cannot thus be gifted may further contribute to the cause of underachievement. So what has caused this myth to emerge? This myth may have emerged from original perceptions of gifted students who are not typically considered at risk for academic failure. This issue continues to be an area of concern as students of exceptional ability tend to be overlooked for struggling academically. Gifted students were also traditionally identified as those who demonstrated high intelligence and academic success in areas such as maths and science, thus basing giftedness on conventional models of achievement. While the recognition of giftedness has spread into many different domains, lack of knowledge, skills and training in gifted education still remain an issue, and this belief may therefore significantly impact on this group of learners. So how may this myth affect gifted learners? Underachievement in gifted students is most commonly described as a discrepancy between potential and performance. As discussed previously, gifted students may become bored and frustrated in the regular classroom if their learning needs and social-emotional needs are not being met. Students may fail to transform their gifts into talents as a result of insufficient challenge. According to Snyder and Lindenbrink-Garcier's person-centered theoretical framework, early insufficient challenge may lead gifted students down the declining value beliefs pathway. As a consequence, gifted students may begin to perceive their schoolwork as tedious, boring, and unrewarding. In losing its intrinsic value, establishing learning goals and succeeding in academic tasks becomes less essential to the individual. Because of their frustration, gifted students may begin to act out in class and fail to conform to classroom behaviour norms. They may begin to violate classroom expectations by neglecting tasks they perceive to have little worth, as well as challenge academic expectations by obtaining lower grades. Due to a lack of understanding, teachers may begin to judge their behaviour more critically and develop low expectations of their students, which may further contribute to the myth that student can't be gifted, he or she is receiving poor grades. Unconscious and harmful stereotyping of students such as this can influence how teachers interact with their students. Research suggests that a teacher's low expectations for a gifted child can create an environment that encourages underachievement. When students are continually treated by their teachers as low achievers, a self-fulfilling prophecy may occur that negatively impacts on their achievement. This is because when a child's determination to modify their teacher's beliefs fail, they may give up trying to transform those beliefs and may further rebel against school. Kolb and Jusum state, as these children behave in a way that reinforces their teachers' low expectations and teachers further reinforce their students' low self-image, achievement may deteriorate in a downward spiral. This links directly to Orwell's quote, "Myths that are believed in tend to become true." If teachers continually have low expectations of their struggling gifted students, the gifted underachiever may suffer from a self-fulfilling prophecy, thus truly believing that they are incompetent. In contrast, unrealistic, high self-expectations may also contribute to the cause of underachievement in gifted students. Research in the field of gifted education identified perfectionism as a significant characteristic associated with these learners. Patterns of perfectionistic behaviours may emerge as a consequence of overlapping environmental and interpersonal catalysts. For example, socially prescribed perfectionism, an interpersonal dimension that involves others having high expectations of the individual, may directly influence intrapersonal motivation. This is because the gifted student may feel extreme pressure to continually achieve, basing their self-worth on their academic achievement. In an attempt to protect self-esteem, they may engage in maladapting coping behaviours such as self-handicapping and task avoidance. Teacher expectations, as well as parents continually presuming that their gifted children will achieve perfect grades, can be emotionally draining for these learners. Thus, they become motivated to underachieve by driving fear of failure. While I have only touched on the surface of some reasons as to why underachievement occurs, there are numerous causes. However, failing to understand motivation and how it contributes to underachievement in gifted students may be a contributing factor to the continuation of the myth that student can't be gifted, he or she is receiving poor grades. If teachers and parents are not educated with the necessary knowledge in understanding gifted children and their inner motivation, as well as causes to underachievement, debunking this myth will not be possible. Educators need to work together to share information and set the climate for change. Setting the climate for change involves sharing information about the educational needs of gifted learners and debunking myths that contribute to negative stereotyping, which leads to our third myth that will be discussed today. Gifted children are proud and arrogant. Cognitive characteristics of gifted children are commonly misunderstood in the regular classroom, which can be challenging for these students in their interactions with their teacher and peers. Cognitive characteristics often associated with gifted individuals include high levels of curiosity, interest, language development, and verbal ability. Creativity, the ability to generate original ideas, and the capacity to hold multiple ideas in mind simultaneously, is often cited as a characteristic of giftedness. According to Suck, gifted children are often misinterpreted by teachers due to insufficient knowledge of the nature of creativity. Teachers have been found to have a lack of understanding of the behavioural and personality traits associated with creative children, misinterpreting their inquisitiveness or high energy levels as disrespectful in the classroom. As Orwell said, myths that are believed in tend to become true. Negative teacher perceptions of gifted individuals are thus a contributing factor to the myth that gifted students are rude and arrogant. In other words, this myth ceases to be simply a myth when enough teachers believe in it. For example, Hyde, Carpenter, and Conway argue that gifted students who fit the creative profile may blurt out questions related to topics they are interested in. They state, While this behaviour is motivated by intellectual curiosity, a teacher might interpret the outburst as arrogance or deliberate rudeness and feel annoyed and frustrated. This exchange is unlikely to foster a positive teacher-student relationship or motivate the teacher to explore ways to help the student develop their creative abilities as well as more appropriate social responses. As gifted children often possess an extensive vocabulary, they are able to verbally express themselves well in comparison to their age peers. Because gifted children are extremely advanced for their age, in the mixed ability classroom, it may lead them to feel superior to their classmates or be perceived by others as arrogant. Similarly, Davis argues that creative gifted individuals have a tendency to be emotional and can question authority, traits that may be misunderstood by peers and teachers and are viewed as negative or inappropriate. Their well-developed sense of justice may also lead to conflict, whereby the gifted students questions the actions of their peers and teacher. Because of these reasons, gifted students often feel misunderstood in the regular classroom and can encounter problems such as feelings of anxiety and lack of empathy. In a 2-year project conducted by Schwartz and Elizel, which aimed to investigate gifted students' perceptions about themselves and their education, they found that these learners struggled to be understood by those in their school environment. They designed a website to elicit comments from gifted children and collected more than 10,000 responses. On this website, a 17-year-old girl from Maryland stated, "Sometimes creativity can get in the way of school. A lot of the times, teachers expect one certain answer that they consider the right answer. When a gifted individual comes up with a creative answer or a solution, teachers may not take the time to hear you out because they are tied into believing that only their answer is correct." It is for these reasons that perceptions of gifted children being proud and arrogant has emerged. This myth, based on a misunderstanding of cognitive characteristics, as well as the fact that the gifted child may be in the wrong learning environment and that their social and emotional and academic needs are not being met. Being highly gifted may therefore come at a cost to these learners. In a study conducted by Bordson and Preckle that examined 321 future and practicing teachers' implicit beliefs about gifted children, teachers admitted to feeling that while they perceived these learners as higher in intellect, they were more standoffish and less agreeable than the average ability students in their class. This belief may have been further intensified as a result of the stereotypical view of these learners being overconfident and egotistic. Thus, negative stereotyping of gifted children, such as they being proud and arrogant, may compromise beliefs about characteristics and traits. So where do we go from here? Research suggests that professional development and training in gifted education has positive effects on teachers' explicit attitudes towards gifted students. This is because professional development has the power to raise awareness of the social and emotional characteristics of gifted children and in effect may challenge educators' negative preconceptions. Understanding the needs of gifted learners is thus an area of advocacy that is consistent among educators who work with gifted children. If we are to successfully provide these learners with an equal access to high-quality learning environments, we must first build awareness and debunk myths that may contribute to the stigmatization of gifted children. Thank you.